Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Israel Hawkins, where we're going to talk a little bit about some bribes that are taking place, as many people see it, some money being offered to the United States for the release of some sanctions. Have more a little bit on the Abraham Accords and the signing,
Peace agreement.
right, between Israel and the UAE, and a little bit of confusion taking place with COVID-19, as well as President Trump is kind of bashing and condemning some of the people who are doctors in this field as well, from some of the statements that they have made. Well, first we're going to start off with Germany, who is reportedly offering €1 billion to the United States to lay off the sanctions of the Nord Stream 2 project. The Germans are intent on getting this project going in this deal with Russia, primarily because they need it. But the U.S. does not want Germany to do a deal with Russia. The hopes for Germany is that the U.S. will lay off as a large sum of money has been invested into this project. Now, every country that this pipeline is passing through has agreed to it, and there's not much more of the pipeline left to be laid.
Well, speaking with RT, former British MP George Galloway said the pipeline will provide cheaper gas than they could ever get from the less than constant stream of shale oil that comes from thousands of miles across the ocean from the United States, at risk of greater environmental risk and higher financial cost. Although many can see that this is an apparent bribe, it's evident that the Germans are planning to move forward with this project regardless. Why? Well, the gas is coming from Europe into Europe. It's cheaper and a guaranteed bottomless pit of gas that will never run out in our lifetime or our children's lifetime.
So why import it all the way from the United States, paying for that shipping cost
when you have it right there?
Right there in your own backyard.
Right.
Well, from Russia's point of view, Germany is a secure customer forever and a day. Diplomatically, economically, and politically, so much has been invested into this pipeline. Now, big question is, will the U.S. accept the bribe? And why, of course, is the U.S. so against, the Nord Stream pipeline taking place, making it difficult for countries that have been considered U.S. allies? Well, some U.S. allies are now being threatened to, and they're also being browbeaten to pull out of a deal that is essentially of great benefit to them.
Of course, this is a sign of how things have been developing over the years since the Trump administration, but countries are willing to stand up against U.S. pressure. Now, the Americans don't want a long-term strategic relationship between Russia and Europe, as they think it will distance Europe from the United States. Now, ironically, it's the U.S.'s campaign against this project that has distanced European countries from Washington. And as you said, that they're willing to pay that amount of money in hopes that the U.S. will just kind of turn an eye to it and let them go ahead and finish. But the U.S. has a lot more in stake there. They have a lot more to lose, which they are not going to easily let go.
Yeah, one of the things is, like we just mentioned here, they don't want to lose the money coming from the gas that they're shipping from the Shell to Germany. B, they don't want their ally making economic deals with what the U.S. considers their enemy, that being Russia. Well, the Caucasus 2020 military exercise has started in southern Russia, where Russian servicemen demonstrate their capabilities along with allies from China, among other countries. The goal of these exercises are to secure, in the southern part of the country, 80,000 servicemen and thousands of armored vehicles and aircrafts, along with the waters of 2 seas and several firing ranges that were used to accommodate such a great military exercise. Well, some of the exercises exceeded the area even of some European states.
Well, according to Russia's defense ministry, up to 1,000 servicemen from Armenia, Belarus, China, Myanmar, and Pakistan have been invited to participate in the joint actions, while representatives from Azerbaijan, Indonesia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Turkestan, and Sri Lanka are attending as observers. Now, Iranian warships will also join the Black Sea Fleet, the Caspian flotilla groupings in the waters of the Black Sea and Caspian Seas.
Now, typically in Russia, large-scale military exercises take place once a year in one of the districts of the country. In 2017, they held the strategic exercise called West. In 2018, called East. And in 2019, 4 maneuvers called Center. So according to Moscow, the Caucasus 2020 exercises are for improving professional skills and do not pursue aggressive goals. The Caucasus 2020 drills also will last for a week, but according to the Russian Minister of Defense, the combat capability of the Russian army has not decreased due to the coronavirus, and all the exercises strictly comply with safety requirements.
Well, some experts say that Moscow is keen to secure stability on the European continent, while others say that the Caucasus 2020 exercise is aimed at demonstrating to NATO that it can repel any large-scale aggressive action. We know that NATO has been stationing around Europe, and and this is what Russia is referring to there, that they're doing these exercises, as they said, to show that we can and will, if need be, repel any of this aggressive action.
And it also proves to them that, hey, look, we're not alone in this. We do have allies that will come to our aid and rectifying any type of aggressive action from NATO and the United States.
Right.
Well, we're going to turn it over right now to our field correspondent Larry McGee, who has some updates for us on, of course, the Abraham Accords and signing, and some weapons that are being delivered to Taiwan from the United States, and how that's kind of starting to rub China the wrong way. Larry, what do you have for us?
There is no positive aspect to rivalry and competition, and though it can be very easy to excuse it for entertainment and other purposes, the truth is that competition in any of its forms is war. War is the opposite of peace. The global competition, which has been in motion among the world's leading nations for years now, is thus a primary culprit and a driving element in what is taking peace from the earth. The all-or-nothing, ever-escalating battle between the U.S. and China is a prime example, the latest hostilities of which are reportedly connected to a new bulk weapons deal between Taipei and Washington. Just as Russia sees America as attempting to hem it in and facilitate a first strike by annexing and arming various nations in Europe, so does China suspect and believe that America is attempting to gain a military and strategic advantage by politically embracing and arming various nations in Asia as well. In an effort to remind Taiwan of its place, however, Beijing reportedly shot several missiles over the nation which fell into the disputed waters of the South China Sea. Beijing has also threatened that if proposed economic meetings between Washington and Taipei proceed forward, that they will do so to the severe detriment of U.S.-China relations. In counterpunching, the U.S. is reportedly preparing a new round of charges against several Chinese citizens for hacking and espionage. Officials and diplomats in the region are said to be concerned that the buildup will lead to an all-out war, and they are beginning to wonder openly and with alarm as to what will be the ultimate end of all of the back and forth. In that fourth part of the earth, in and around the great river Euphrates, the current U.S. administration is proclaiming an historic success after the signing of the Abraham Accords between Israel, the United Emirates, and Bahrain. The deal is said to give formal recognition to already existing relationships and includes the opening of embassies, but noticeably absent from all of the festivities was any representation from the Palestinians. U.S. diplomats say that Palestine is to blame, insomuch as they have sought to negotiate through the United Nations, as opposed to entering into direct talks with Israel. President Trump stated that there are more Mideast nations slated to also be included into the accords, so that there is suspicion by some as to whether or not the accords themselves might not actually be an emerging military alliance. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, with those Abraham Accords there, some are wondering why they're actually referring to them as a peace agreement, because the nations involved are not necessarily at war, but we know that the the Middle East and especially Israel with the peace agreements is very significant according to Bible prophecy. So it will be interesting how far that goes and if they will get other countries involved, if Israel is able to get other countries to join, to come on board with the peace agreement.
That's right.
Well, the director of the CDC and the President of the United States are not seeing eye to eye these days. Dr. Robert Redfield spoke to lawmakers on Capitol Hill this week, testifying under oath a timeline for a coronavirus vaccine and also pointing out how masks could be a better weapon against the virus than any vaccine that comes out. Now, the head of the CDC told senators, quote, "These face masks are the most important, powerful public health tool that we have."
Interesting. The doctor further explained himself, saying, "I might even go as far as to say that this face mask is more guaranteed to protect me against COVID than when I take a COVID vaccine, because the immunogenicity might be 70%, and if I don't get an immune response, the vaccine's not going to protect me." But these comments, of course, they contradict the president's outlook and sparked a call from President Donald Trump to Dr. Redfield.
Well, President Trump has been pushing for a vaccine before the November elections. The CDC director believes if a vaccine is produced before the end of the year, it would be in limited supply. Now, as far as when a vaccine could be readily available to the general public to help restore normalcy, the doctor estimated it might not be until the end of the second quarter, but more likely during the third quarter of 2021.
But the president publicly disagreed with Redfield, telling the press, "No, I think he made a mistake when he said that. It's just incorrect information. And I called him and he didn't tell me that, and I think he got the message maybe confused." Well, the president maintained the release of a vaccine won't be far off, and the government is ready to administer it as soon as it's announced.
Well, the CDC has also put out new guidelines concerning the coronavirus, warning the majority of U.S. citizens are still at risk. Now, Dr. Redfield said most Americans have not been infected with the virus and are still vulnerable to the infection. There is a new antibody study out for the country showing approximately 90% of Americans are susceptible to the virus.
But Dr. Scott Atlas, the newest member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, publicly disagreed with the CDC director, telling the press, "I think that Dr. Redfield misstated something there." Of course, accusing him of using some old data to make his statements.
Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci and Senator Rand Paul have been also butting heads a little bit on Capitol Hill concerning public health guidelines and if they're actually working to stop the spread of the virus throughout New York City. Senator Paul brought up the idea of community immunity, also known as herd immunity, as the reason why New Yorkers were not experiencing a current rise in infections. Now, Dr. Fauci abruptly responded, "I challenge that, Senator. You are not listening to what the director of the CDC said, that in New York, it's about 22%. If you believe 22% is herd immunity, I believe you're alone in that," he said.
Well, next we'd like to share with you a personal message from one woman's experience with COVID-19 and how it has affected her life and that of her entire family. Please take a look.
My message to people is, this pain will never go away for me. To put a mask on so that you never have to suffer what I went through or know that you possibly contributed to that is just don't be selfish. They saw the news and were like, "Oh no, it's like, it's nothing. We're going to be okay." My parents' generation was a generation that trusted their doctors. They trusted their leaders. They met when my mom was like 17, and they were together ever since. 8 family members had it. You know, it went the whole gamut. My sister was taking care of my mother. She caught it. Then she gave it to her son, and her son gave it to his partner. And my brother gave it to his wife, and my other brother caught it and gave it to his wife. My mind is getting angry with all the things that could have been done. I tried to get my mother to come here and my father. They have a townhouse here, and they saw the news and were like, oh no, it's like, you know, it's nothing. We're gonna be okay. And I think that if they got some message from someone that, hey, this is bad, you know, they may have thought twice. Really did lose almost an entire generation. And wow, I can't believe I'm not composing myself because I'm stronger than this, but it's just I'm seeing so much people not, you know, being careless with wearing a mask when it can save a life. And there are so many other old people that are, I don't want this to happen to them when they can just be responsible and not complacent. It's just a mask, you know, for a few minutes, you know, constitutional right. Oh my God, I'm appalled at that. I'm just absolutely appalled at that. So, you know, my message to people is, you know, this pain will never go away for me. To put a mask on so that you never have to suffer what I went through or know that you possibly contributed to that is just don't be selfish.
Sad situation there, but you know, the point she made about you know, not being careless, you know, thinking of others is a great point that everybody needs to consider with the wearing of the mask.
And how fast it spread amongst
Absolutely,
even the family.
and really how devastating it was to her family.
That's right.
Well, the U.S. has now topped 7 million coronavirus cases, and the CDC Director, Dr. Anthony Fauci, is warning Americans of a serious challenge if levels remain this high. Now, it all comes as some states ease restrictions, including the Republican governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who is telling residents the Sunshine State plans to have a full Super Bowl, which could bring 150,000 visitors to Tampa Bay. And remember the large gatherings that they were having right there, that was what they were saying was contributing to the very quick spread of COVID-19.
Yeah, it seems like they're more concerned about the economy than they are about the health of their citizens.
Or their entertainment.
That's true, yeah. Well, Florida is opening up for business with the governor lifting all restrictions on bars and restaurants, allowing them to operate at full capacity. He is also overriding mandates that would have fined residents for not wearing a mask.
With nearly 14,000 Floridians having died from COVID, health experts are warning it might be too soon. Now, 8 other states are now reporting a new surge in cases. Wisconsin surpassed them all with nearly 100%, actually 97.3% in cases with more people hospitalized, 543 than ever before.
Now, Virginia's Governor Ralph Northam has announced that he and his wife have both tested positive for the virus, and 2 men who oversaw the soldiers' home, in Holyoke, Massachusetts, could possibly face criminal charges in the deaths of at least 76 veterans who have died from COVID.
Well, prosecutors say patients who tested positive for COVID were crammed into the same room as those who were healthy. Now, one nurse told investigators she felt like she was walking the veterans to their death, and they were terrified.
Oh, that's horrible.
You know, and that feeling there, as the nurse explained that they were terrified, that seems to be a very common feeling that many people across the world are experiencing because the doctors don't have the answers. The scientists are not coming up with anything on it either. They're not finding a cure, even though they're all racing to find one. But everything they've done so far has been unsuccessful in targeting this this virus. So, you know, the fearfulness that they're experiencing, being terrified, is something that's very common today in the world.
That's right. And then you take into consideration the fact that, you know, there's really no factor in determining who will get it and who won't get it. Before, they thought it was something that was primarily targeting older people, 40 years and above, and now they're having more instances or cases of people who are in their 20s. And of course, we're tying that in with what we're seeing taking place in Florida and many places that have allowed these large gatherings where people can mingle and spread COVID-19 a lot quicker, and it's increasing the spread rate among the people.
That's right. But there is something that you can do so you don't experience this fear and the being terrified, as we're seeing in the world today. You can contact the House of Yahweh, because there is someone who does have the answers for you on how you can protect yourself and your loved ones. Contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget your free copy, to request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and Prophetic Word magazine. Inside is the information that you need for your safety.
That's right. You can contact the House of Yahweh at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call the House of Yahweh at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any other websites by going to Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. You can email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And don't forget to aid you in the study of the understanding of the Holy Scriptures. The Ask Israel and the Israel Says program is available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, free to aid you in your studies. And you can find those programs by simply going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is Yisrael Hawkins, a man who has been studying the Scriptures for decades and does have your well-being and safety in mind. You're going to want to hear his message. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.